Hello, here we go. So we are into paper two on the 2024 core maths exam. Now, questions 1, 2, and 3 appear on all three papers. So although this says 2A, this is also for 2B and it's also for 2C. Okay, question 1. Quite a lot in question 1. Quite chunky, so this video might be a long one. Use economics of music streaming from the preliminary material. Use the information in graph 2 to estimate the number of premium Google, including YouTube Music, subscriptions there were in the UK in January 2020. So fiddling around with my notes, just going to find where my calculation was. So if we have a look at the graph 2, we've got 22.6 million and Google is at 4%. So 22.6 million times by 0.04 gives me 0.904 million, and that's about 900,000. So we're ticking that second box for our first mark. Okay, suggest two improvements that could be made to the graphs on pages 2 and 3. So we've got our graphs on the screen. Graph 1 hasn't got any grid lines. I hate it. Grid lines is normally a real common answer for most of these. So have a look at your preliminary materials. Check for grid lines. We've got within the mark scheme, it says include a vertical or a y-axis or put percentages or values on the scales. I'm not sure how proportional these graphs are. They don't look too bad, but I don't want to get a ruler around and check them. It says also do not show bars that represent 0 or combine services with low proportions into an other bar. So this is talking about graph 2. For me, I'd like to have seen it go to 1 decimal place or 2 decimal places so that we could see the difference between Amazon Prime Music or Apple Music, or also Deezer and SoundCloud. So that would have worked for me. Up the top here, average age, just it doesn't indicate whether it's the average age of the users or whether it's the average age of the products they have. I don't really know what that is. Maybe even just show that on a separate graph. Show all percentages outside of the bars. Show small percentages to 1 or 2 decimal places. Show small percentages more accurately. So there is a lot in there, and you should surely be able to pick up your 2 marks from working through that. Right, okay, so scrolling down, we go to 1C. So readers of the extract commented that it was difficult to follow diagram 1. Give one reason why they might have said this. So look at that. That is a busy graph. It's all over the place. We've got no explanation for 27%. I mean, I know that they're adding this bit here, but what on earth is this column here? There is no label for the 27%, whereas there is over here for the 30 to 34%, although it's a streaming service. Not really sure what that is either. Might be the revenue. None of these all add up to 100%. We've got 55% and 55% repeated in this diagram. So for me, very hard to follow. It's not always clear whether the percentages are kept or whether they're passed on to the next bit. And some percentages are given as a range as opposed to actually an actual figure. So I think there's lots there. Percentages is confusing, sort of on the additional guidance. So that is just a very busy diagram that's not very clear. Okay, question 1D. Now 1D, there's several methods. I'm going to show you my method. So in a sports club, 20 players are daily active users of BBC Sounds, 27 are weekly active users. Compare the proportion of listeners at the sports club with who are daily active users with the proportion of the customers who are all daily active users. That's like all of them. So graph 1 is what we're using, but what we need to do first of all is we've got the daily users of BBC Sounds, which is going to be 20 divided by the 20 plus 27, which is 20 over the 47, because that's just adding these two up, and that's 42.55% are daily users at the sports club. Okay, now in the total, the population, we've got 5 out of 14, because on our diagram, BBC Sounds, here we go, so we've got 5%, 9%, and then if we do that division, it's 35.71%, so the population, sorry, the proportion, it's a greater proportion at the sports club. And like I for myself, I struggled with adding the percentages together, but it's within the BBC Sounds block. So 14% of the users are either daily or weekly. If they're not in that 14%, that means they're not using it very often. So they're like signed on, but it's like once a month or once a year. So that is giving us a fair proportion where there's 35.7% of the general population using it. Of the at least weekly or daily users, they're using it daily. So yeah, greater proportion for the sports club. Right, 1E. 1E. Two music websites commented on the report. Streaming services kept more money than was given to the recording artists and songwriters, composers combined. And then the other comment, for every 4 Amazon Music Prime subscriptions, there are about 7 Spotify subscriptions. So for the recorder, the streaming service looks like they keep 30 to 34%. So 30 to 34% to the streaming service. And then when we look across here, this 27 is a sum of these three. So it looks like 27% is going to the artist. And therefore this statement is true. My handwriting's getting terrible. That's not even words. Is true. Okay, waxing lyrical. Now, there are 8 methods on this in the mark scheme. 8 methods. I'll show you my method. I think it's pretty good. So Amazon Music Prime is 25% of the proportion. And then Spotify is 44%. So I want to know, because it's saying for every 4, I want it to be in the format of 4 to n. I'm going to create this ratio. So to get from 25 to 4, I do 25 divided by 4, 6.25. So if I divide both of these by 6.25, I'm going to get my 4. And then this is going to come down to the n value that I want. So 44 divided by 6.25, and that gives me 7.04, which is really close to 7. And it says there were about 7 Spotify subscriptions. So I'm going to say that this one is true as well. Okay, 1F. This is our last part for question 1. Another music website made this claim. Only 13% of consumers do not use a streaming daily service. Is the website's claim correct? Use graph 1 to justify your answer. So in graph 1, here we go. It's looking at wanting you to add all of these together. And I can't remember if it was weekly or daily users. Let me just check my notes. Only 13% of consumers do not use a streaming service daily. So it's looking at the dailies. So 2, 4, 8, 11, 16, 23, 32, 52, 57, 77, 87. So they add up to 87, and what they're looking for is for you to say, oh, that's 13%, but it's not true, because these are proportions of Google Play. These are the proportions of the Deezer subscriptions. These are the proportions of the Amazon Music Prime. So we can't compare them all the way across. So for this one, you cannot tell. You cannot tell comparing percentages across platforms does not work. Okay, so comparing those percentages across those platforms just won't work. You'd need to know the actual figures, though it might be true. And this is the thing, you can't rule it out, because actually the numbers might work out. But in this case, we can't compare the percentages across those platforms. Right, that's it from question 1. I will see you at question 2.